thank you everyone for joining us. Now, before I introduce you to the panelists, let's take a quick look at who responded to our State of Volume Hiring survey. We had 151 volume hiring teams participate. And as you can see, it was a really diverse mix of organisation size and, you know, the amount of volume hires they're making per year as well. But before we go any further, let's invite our panelists to join us today. We're lucky enough to have Faye, the Head of Talent Acquisition at Anglicare. Hi, Faye. How are you?
Hi, Jo. Great to be here. Thank you for including me in this session.
Oh, you're so welcome. What kind of volume hiring do you do at Anglicare?
Yeah, Jo, we do typically around 1,500 per year for volume recruitment. Our volume recruiters sit on about 40 roles per month, and we tend to sort of recruit a lot in the home care space, so an aged care space. So that covers your nurses, your surgery staff, your care workers. So yes, it's certainly a busy team at Anglicare.
Wonderful. Well, very different kind of volume hiring. Marie from Bunnings. Marie, thank you for joining us today.
Hello, thanks for having me.
I think everyone knows exactly what Bunnings do. If you haven't been in a Bunnings store, I mean, really, you mustn't be living in Australia, surely.
I think even those that don't live in Australia would know what a Bunnings store is.
Watch Bluey.
Yeah, exactly. The Hammer Barnes. Best marketing ever for our business.
Amazing. So tell us about your volume hiring campaigns. How many would you consider to be volume hires per year?
Yeah, so per year, our volume hires sit around 11 to 15,000. And that sits predominantly out in our store, our DCs and our trade centre network. So anything from our entry points, which is our customer service team, through to our DCs, which are a bit more a different skill set that we hire for, but still in volume.
Lovely. And our final panelist, Daniel from Paradox. Hi, Daniel. How are you going?
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. So, Daniel, you have moved from internal TA land, the world of talent operations, and you're now with Paradox. Can you share a little bit about your current role?
Yeah. I think it's a really cool role and the privilege of partnering with TA teams and leaders across APAC to really look at designing and delivering transformation strategies for TA teams and really leveraging the automation and AI that Paradox can bring. So it's a really cool position to be in, and I'm looking forward today to diving into the report, but also hearing about Faye and Marie's perspectives as well.
Lovely. And you work with somebody that's fairly famous, somebody named Olivia. Now, for those of you that don't know Olivia, she is, I believe, the world's most famous recruiter. She is on track to schedule 35 million interviews this year alone. She works 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. She never takes a break. She never sleeps. And she does it in dozens of different languages as well. Fairly impressive stuff. So life must be pretty easy for you, Dan, if you've got Olivia doing that work.
I mean, yeah, and I love her so much. I named my daughter Olivia as well. So there you go.
Which one happened first?
I don't want to say.
Lovely. Well, let's dig into some of the data. So like I said, we had 151 volume hiring organisations. And as we can see here, we've got our average strength for delivery, just the ability to deliver the right talent at the right time. 7 out of 10, not so bad. But as we move through the points, we get all the way down to organisations experiencing no-shows, 46%. I mean, no-shows is kind of not something that you hear about in any other realm, really, other than volume hiring. I never hear of a head of marketing not turning up on day one. I don't know, maybe somebody in the chat has had that experience before. But Faye, this must be particularly difficult to have no-shows in such a highly regulated industry.
Yes, it is. Look, we have tackled the no-shows from a day one perspective by actually having a dedicated administrator within the team. So we have seen a significant improvement, and they do have to sort of, pick up the phone and have the calls and make sure people are going to be showing up. And we also obviously have agencies to back up for any last minute no-shows. But we do see a high no-show rate at our assessment centres. And that's usually, excuse me, due to when students need to travel more than an hour, especially to sites with limited transport options. So that's actually one of our challenges, is actually during the assessment centre having the no-shows there, especially for our Northern Beaches homes.
Now, Marie, I can't imagine anyone not turning up for a Bunnings shift on their first day. Does it happen?
It does happen, but it's very, very rare. So last year we had 2% of our hires were a no-shows. That's very, very low in a retail environment. But we try to really get the candidate to really experience what it would be like to work in a Bunnings store before it gets to office stage. So we find it really important that we take the candidates around for what we call a store walk. We get them to understand that, you're going to be on your feet for long periods of time. And when it's really hot in the stores, it's hot. And when it's cold, it can be freezing cold. And then you're expected to lift heavy things. So we try to really just draw that out of the candidate, whether or not they want to work in an environment like that before we get to that stage. So when we do hire the person, that we know that they're 100% comfortable with working in our environment.
People must really get a sense walking through the store of, this is this is how it's going to feel like. Can I see myself?
Yeah, and it is a very different, and any retailer will anyone that's worked in TA teams across retailer will tell you this. It is very different coming into a store when you're a customer versus when you're working behind the scenes and you're getting somebody, a leader, to really show you and unpack it to you around how things actually work.
And I guess I'd rather have a reneg than a no-show. So
exactly, you'd rather find the right candidate. It's a huge investment. Investing in induction and then onboarding. We do a lot around product training to have them, people not show up or only show up for a limited time before they leave.
Yeah. Let's talk about the mismatch between business expectations and hiring reality. So we've got a quarter of businesses giving, less than 4 weeks notice for a major intake, and a third of organisations taking 4 weeks, more than 4 weeks to fill. Is this reasonable, do you think, panel? Anyone want to, I guess is it industry dependent?
I think that's a really long time in my industry. We would definitely lose candidates from a 2 to 4 week period. Before we centralised, we had a time to hire around 30 days, and we weren't exactly finding the best candidates. But since we centralised our processes, our hiring processes are down to 7 to 10 days, and that's inclusive of what we call a coffee with the boss, which is a meet and greet with the store leadership team. So you're not fast to act. I think you lose the best people on the market because they're applying at multiple other places at the same time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We have candidates that are very competitive, have multiple offers on the table. Speed is really important to us. We have targets of 7 days. Sorry, we're now at 10, but we're still focusing on reducing that. And we do use Sapir AI. That has really been a massive game changer for us.
Well, let's take a look at the next page. We're talking about how fast some volume teams are hiring. So, Daniel, this is a paradox slide. This is people using your product. 2 to 3 days, is that reasonable?
I mean, it might sound ambitious to some, but it's actually something we are seeing organizations doing, even in Australia. And I noticed on the previous slide, I think the lowest option was 3 days. So it'd be interesting to see if anyone has hit under 3 days so far. But yeah, it's definitely possible. And what really becomes critical in actually making that happen is everything that Faye have mentioned. On top of that, being able to really communicate with candidates 24/7, we find that as really important. We know people that work in high volume environments like retail, logistics, hospitality, things like that. They're not applying in the traditional ways from a laptop at their desk between the hours of 9 to 5. So we know they might be applying when they finish their shift, which can be any time of the day. So with that, on top of what Faye just mentioned and Marie around candidates applying to multiple jobs at the same time, they really accept the first offer that starts moving. So that's where automation comes in, becomes such a game changer in that environment.
I was talking to a talent leader last week, and they were saying that their volume hiring team works from 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. But the people that they're hiring come off shift around that time, and then they start engaging and asking questions, following up, applying around 4 p.m. onwards. And so there's this really big mismatch. So you kind of have to, candidate sends off an email, then we have to wait for the recruiter to have their dinner, go to bed, wake up, get their coffee, get back at their desk, and then respond. And then we have to wait for the candidate to get off shift, and it just blows out all the timeframes, right?
It's not quick enough. And when you have other organizations doing that in less than 7 days, potentially less than 3 days, you start to miss out the best talent.
Daniel, before we move on to the next one, same day hiring, is this in the future? Is it possible?
The future is now. We have many clients doing that for some real life.
So hang on a second. Somebody applies, they go live for the job, somebody applies, and they get an offer on the same day.
Yeah. It is amazing. It is a shift in kind of thinking that we're seeing happen in this market. But they are genuinely doing that because their tech is always on. So there's never a point where candidates feel like they're waiting. They're always moving through the process. And that's happening when they apply, which is, when they have the most motivation to actually join your organization. So
I'm going to hold you to account on this. You're going to know who are the organizations hiring on the same day?
We have FedEx and we have KFC as well in Australia.
Oh, in Australia, right. Yeah. FedEx has a really interesting story. I heard that the FedEx freight handler, the same day hiring from the AI, the reason that got picked up, correct me if I'm wrong, was because they realized across all the roles at FedEx that a freight handler can be revenue positive, like being productive, helping earn money for the organization quite quickly. And they went, well, if they can be kind of revenue positive that quick, why would you slow it down and invest a lot of money in a human process? How quick can a FedEx freight handler be productive?
Their use case is super interesting. They knew it actually takes only 2 hours of productivity for a new recruit in their warehouse to cover the cost of recruiting them. So they decided with that, they're comfortable to automate 100% of that process. We do recognize, though, in other organizations that time to become revenue positive may take longer. There might be other kind of checkpoints and gates that candidates need to go through before being hired. So it's really important that the process that you design really matches what works for you and your organization.
Yeah. And I think, the case study that I heard was kind of like, hey, if they come back for a second day, bonus, because you're winning. Yeah. And what they did was kind of reinvested that recruiter time into the roles that, if you can imagine hiring, say, a sales partnership rep or someone like that, the time to actually do a deal might be 9 months or 12 months. So it takes a lot longer to be revenue positive for the organization. So you can really invest more human time in those kind of roles. Yeah. Let's talk about revenue impact in the volume hiring process. I know that there's a lot of, like Hungry Jackson example, if you don't have people on shift, the queue to kind of line up and order, people go, I'll head across the road to KFC or something. If you don't have enough staff on, Faye, what does that look like for Anglicare? I can't imagine you're looking at revenue impact for a care worker on shift. What do you track and look at?
Well, in aged care, volume recruitment is shaped by regulation. So every candidate must pass checks, meet training standards, align to code of conduct. So it adds a real complexity. So compliance needs to be built into our processes right up front. We have to have really strong, good systems to support that and have very clear communication with candidates. For aged care, recruitment's not just about filling vacancies. It's directly aligned to financial performance, so protecting the funding, operational continuity, so making sure that we've got enough staff on board, 24/7 rosters, and compliance. We have care minutes that are both a compliance measure and a funding trigger. So,
and Faye, quickly, care minutes is the amount of minutes that a care worker would be able to spend with.
Yes.
Would you call them a patient?
They would a resident.
A resident.
Yes. So providers must prove each quarter that the mandated minutes are being delivered.
Wow.
So that makes recruitment central to compliance for us. So if staffing falls short, providers risk breaching standards and losing funding. So it's incredibly important. And for recruitment, this means ensuring not just numbers, but the right skill mix and hiring speed with recruitment strategies directly tied to rostering, modeling, and care minute forecasts. Hence why we have quarterly forecasts, but it's an industry that is, and an environment that change happens all the time. And that's why for us, speed does matter, but needs to be backed up by a casual pool as well.
Yeah. And Marie, is it revenue for you? Like, what is the big impact if you don't, if somebody walks the floor but still just doesn't show up?
Well, we have things like our GI areas, so how stock gets on the shelves. If we don't have teams supporting our supply chain space, there can easily become a big backlog of stock sitting in back of house, and then we get deliveries every day, right? So that log keeps building, and then there's no stock on the shelves, which can then impact when we do have team on board, getting that stock out really quickly. It can impact injuries because we need things done really fast. It impacts multiple. We're a service-driven business, so if a customer comes in, they're usually coming in for like a project or something along those lines. It impacts how they shop and the multiple items that they could be shopping for. So it's not just about what is checked out at the till, because there's that's the easy part. Like you can check out with the self-serve checkout. It's everything else that helps the customer build the project that they need, from the GI areas to through the service element on the shop floor.
I need a lot of help when I'm in Bunnings. I'm somebody, my good time is, a cocktail and a home reno show, and the ideas that I have don't quite match the skills that I have. And I need a lot of help when I want to kick off a project, usually a doomed project. Can I say the Bunnings team are always very, very helpful. Now, we've got a couple of questions coming in. Daniel, this relates back to the slide where we were talking about hiring within 2 to 3 days. Lauren wants to know, are those permanent or, casual contract roles, the 2 to 3 day turnarounds?
Yeah, they're most commonly contract roles, particularly in the US use cases. They have some complex employment laws that they run through, which means they do need to be compliant. I saw a few comments around compliance as well as quality of hire. They're all very valid considerations. But again, considering that time to revenue positive, that's something they've taken into account and have said that's worth it.
Yeah. And there's another question here that Ivan's asking around, do you have any data on quality of hire, not just speed of hire?
Yeah, that's ultimately a decision that our clients ultimately make around the quality of candidates that they're getting. It's against their benchmarks, kind of their role profiles. So that is something they can look at and ultimately tweak the process to accommodate and make sure that quality is coming through. But again, from a speed element, we often see that the best candidates leave the market soonest because they get snapped up. So if you're quicker, it stands to reason that they're better. They're better quality candidates.
Lovely. Look, we've got a few, so we might just keep continuing through a couple of questions. We've got here, Katie is asking, do they build in candidate experience milestones in that process that goes so fast?
Yeah, and there are various different ways it can be designed. Milestones in terms of as they move through the process, they're engaged. They are instantly provided with communications around how their application is tracking. And then they have their compliance elements around the pre-employment checks and conditional offer letters as well. So they're all built in to the end-to-end process.
Yeah, I think we can build in as many kind of like, it's a little bit like the cultural aspect of, look what a great employer we are. Here's a ping pong table. I mean, when people kind of need other things, and I think in the hiring process, communication, transparency, knowing where you stand, having an outcome shared with you, all of those things are kind of like, the Maslow hierarchy of needs. These are the things that really matter. Lovely. I think Katie's got a question here. What sort of compliance checks are being completed within a 2 to 3 day turnaround time?
There are some pretty complex integrations happening between some of our clients and their background check providers to a point where they're able to kind of tap into those resources pretty quickly and provide that quick turnaround time. So it's a fairly large scale type of operation, but it is possible. And that's kind of what we're seeing as the trend towards the future.
Lovely. All right. Fabulous. Well, any more questions? Go over to the Q&A section and add them in. Next slide. So what the 151 volume hiring team said were their top challenges. Number 1 was time-consuming screening and scheduling. Number 2 was lack of qualified candidates. 3 were our no-shows and renegs. 4 was quality of hire. And 5 was just taking too much time from, hiring managers. 56.3% said that talent team said it was difficult to get in touch with applicants after they applied for a volume role, and they had very heavy reliance on email and phone calls. So let's dig into our top measure, time-consuming screening and scheduling. Dan, this is a slide that you've provided just to sort of show how you're kind of achieving those same day or 2 to 3 day turnaround times. Do you want to talk about this?
For sure. I think firstly, the top 5 challenges you just ran through, they're really aligned to the conversations that we're having with TA leaders every day. So it's not really surprising to see that they are the results of the report. What we've seen, though, is this number 1 challenge, automating interview scheduling as well as screening, is far and away having the largest impact on organizations. So it really goes to show the opportunity that's there. And we have clients saving thousands of hours for their recruitment teams and hundreds of thousands of dollars by automating this stage. So when you partner with Paradox, you have the ability to do a couple of different things around redesigning your recruitment journey. Using automation, you can streamline your application process without having candidates to create logins and go through the traditional kind of long, clunky application forms. All the interview scheduling is then automated off the back of the application coming through the system and the candidate actually being screened against those application questions. There's also the ability to add in assessments as well to make sure we're pre-qualifying candidates. And then ultimately, recruiters can come in to work knowing that they have phone screens scheduled with candidates that have been pre-qualified, and potentially that's happened over a weekend or outside of the normal working hours. And then most critically, that what Paradox brings is that an engagement layer for your candidates, and really seeing this as how we constantly engage with those candidates, go in with those milestones and checkpoints throughout the recruitment journey, particularly the last one there around candidate Q&A. If we think about all the other challenges, maybe around candidates no-showing or early attrition in the first couple of months, if you had the ability to let candidates know what the role was actually going to look like, for example, in Bunnings, being on your feet 8 hours a day, or in a care home, maybe the realities of working in a care home, if you can share that content with candidates up front in a Q&A style or as a video, then that really goes to kind of bring down those measures as well. So there's a lot that can be done. But yeah, we definitely see screening and scheduling as the number 1 opportunity.
I mean, I think we're robbing recruiters of such an exciting part of their role, that bit where you email somebody and say this Tuesday at 9 o'clock suit, and then you wait 3 days and they email you back and say, no, how about Wednesday at 12? And you go, oh no, the hiring manager's not available. Let me check with them. And then you wait 3 days for your hiring manager to let you know their schedule. And then you email back. I mean, recruiters are just going to miss this amazing level of back and forth of this, I was going to say tennis match, but surely it's a pickleball match.
Yeah,
these
you might
days,
know some different recruiters than I do, maybe.
Well, I think, if we go back a slide, what I'm noticing is number 1, number 2, and number 5 all really point to structural inefficiencies, right? So I think there's some really good gains to make there by looking at that, structure and process. Let's move forward now to the next one, no-shows and renegs. We talked a little about this earlier. Marie, you hinted earlier around the walkthrough, but I saw an amazing picture online that went viral of this young guy, my old neighborhood up in Collingwood store. He had posted that he got his Bunnings shirt and he got his apron, and it was a really big moment for him. Was that, is that one of your kind of moments that matter? Do you do that purposely, send it in advance rather than give it on the first day, or how does that work?
Yeah, so they're important cultural markers for us. The red shirt and the apron is a really important part of being a part of the Bunnings team. We're very proud to wear that. It is also a requirement that you wear it at induction because we want you to feel part of the team. So we, and it's also a good check-in for the leader once the candidate or new team member is hired, to call them and invite them into the store and give them give them their shirt, give them their apron, give them their safety gloves. When they start working on the day, they get their safety knife after they do all the safety induction.
I love you giving that knife.
But they get given a suite of things that just make them feel part of Bunnings. And that's why we talk about renegs. It doesn't happen often because we bring them part of the fold really early on in the piece and make them feel important.
I was just going to say, Faye's not handing out knives, but Faye, you're probably handing out some decent medical equipment yourself, actually. Now, Marie, you are a big multi-generational employer. Is it right that one of the staff members joined in, is it 1959 and is still working?
Yeah. Yep, he's in 1959 Claremont store and he's still working in the same store as where he started. So I had to look at his service date about 10 times. I thought it was his birth date, not his service date. But yeah, no, we do. Look, we hire people of all ages. And that's another important thing for us as well. We're a business where sometimes we can't just hire, the 15-year-old, because the customer that comes in, they want somebody that has lived the experience and, gone through maybe a home reno and being an ex-tradie. We find ex-tradies are some of our best team members because they have that different level of skill. So, yeah, I mean, it's really important for us to have a diverse, multi-generational kind of workforce.
And you had was it a recent hire, somebody in their 70s?
80s, I think it was.
Somewhere in their 80s. Amazing.
Yeah. Yep, in our Canberra store.
How wonderful.
I don't think I've ever had poor customer service at Bunnings. There's something so special about the culture there, I think. You really see it, don't you, in the people?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Good to hear. Hopefully all the comments come back that they've had good service too.
I think when people connect with purpose, it's quite wonderful, isn't it? And they obviously are very motivated to work there. And I think we see that the same in aged care. People have aging parents, and they really have that drive and motivation and want to make a difference. So I think when you can connect people to purpose, it's or provide them with something that is really meaningful, it really helps.
Yeah, awesome.
Great.
Let's talk about taking too much time from hiring managers was number 5 on the list. So we've got a slide here. So a little while ago, as part of the larger State of Talent Acquisition Survey, one of the stats that came out was 51% of organisations said recruiters just do not spend enough time with hiring managers. More time would be beneficial. Yet at the same time, in the volume aspect, they're saying we're actually taking too much time from our hiring managers spending on the process. So, we asked them, how do you expect AI to benefit the talent function? And 90% of those teams, and it was more respondents, so we're up more around the 230 talent team mark. 90% said that they expect it to heavily automate admin. 71% said they expect it to improve candidate experience. 68% believed it's going to reduce time to hire, and 41% believed that it would help that number 4 point in our top 5 challenges, help impact the quality of hire. We also had giving back, recruiters time to business partner and reduced time to hire and all of those kind of measures as well. So Daniel, I might get you to share a little case study here about 7-Eleven, another kind of icon here all over Australia. You've given 40,000 hours back to store managers.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Even just looking back at the results of the report, I think they're pretty clear and unanimous and not really surprising. Everyone wants faster hiring. They want less admin burden. No one's really asking for too much. They just want that type of efficiency and they want it at scale. So the good news is there are ways to do that and build in technology. A prime example is Paradox's partnership with 7-Eleven. It is 7-Eleven in the US, I will say. So yeah, as one of the world's most recognized brands, obviously high volume hiring is at the core of what they do. One of the really interesting things about 7-Eleven is they operate in a decentralized hiring model. So store leaders themselves are actually responsible for recruiting, which means the pressure of actually finding and scheduling candidates sits directly with them. And then, as you can imagine, when you're trying to run a store, manage people and customers, as has been spoken about, making recruitment difficult becomes a huge time sink for them.
Daniel, is that because they're a franchise model? Is that why the responsibility sits with them?
They actually have a hybrid model, and they've made that decision around their frontline stores to be decentralized. Yeah. It is most frequently when there is at least a significant portion of stores that are franchised. So what we did with 7-Eleven was introduced Reader, who's their 24/7 conversational assistant.
Now, Reader is Olivia renamed. Everyone gets to choose their own name.
Yeah. In fact, we encourage it to change it and really make it suitable to your brand. Basically, she does all of the tasks that we've mentioned that recruiters really don't want to do and store managers don't have time to do. She automates about 95% of their process. So things like screening, scheduling, sending reminders and things like that. From a candidate point of view, the experience is completely transformed. So they can apply and schedule themselves into an interview that happens instantly. They can do it on their phone. There's no need to log in or wait or anything like that. So the results and the impact on speed for them has been huge. As you can see there, their time to hire dropped from over 10 days to under 3. And at the large scale that they operate, that adds up to a staggering 40,000 hours every single week given back to the store leaders. You can imagine what that would equate to maybe in dollars when you think of the rate. So yeah, the results are enormous.
Fabulous. And if we head to the next slide here, let's look at what the 151 volume hiring team said were the top volume recruitment channel. So where are the candidates coming from? The number one still job boards. So we've got job boards, their career site, referral program, social media, your talent pool, agency, and walk-ins. Faye, what does that look like for you? Is that the right way around?
Yeah, probably. Job boards, I would say Seek still remains our number one source. We have, and also our career site, our Anglicare career site. We have a paid referral program that works really well. That's around 30% of our hires as well. And a lot of our recruitment channels are the conversions of our casual pool. And we also have a strong talent pool that enables us to tap into. So because we try to forecast as best we can, and we have to forecast, but generally we need to tap into that talent pool and rely on also our people, knowing great people.
Well, let's check out the next slide. We've got, what is your HR team's approach to using AI? And this will be interesting because I think in the next slide or two, we're going to circle back to that top volume hiring channel slide. It's all going to tie in together. So we've got a combined 69% on the journey of AI. So we have 23% who are saying, yep, we are using it successfully. 46% are in early stages. Very few talent teams are saying we have no plans to go down the AI route. When you look at the kinds of AI being used, obviously we've got generative for, job ads and position descriptions. We've got sourcing teams using AI sourcing tools like HireEasy and others out there. We've got AI assessment in psychometrics, and then we've got AI interview scheduling as well. But I think organisationally, we're seeing a really big shift here. And, what is upon us is not just AI used in recruitment processes, but, potentially AI agents used across organisations. So organisations are now starting to get their ducks in a row when it comes to having a clear AI strategy and governance framework. We've got 21% already have a strategy and governance framework. 41% are in development. So that really signals something is coming. And when I asked about describing your organization's mindset towards AI adoption, what we've got here on one side is skeptical, resistant, not really sure. And on the other side, we've got a breakdown of we are AI pioneers, we're AI optimists, and we're AI cautious, but we're moving forward, but with caution. So we can see that there's, this real shift starting to happen. When it comes to volume hiring, automated versus human, we asked about the level of automation and volume hiring, and we sort of said, thinking about your process end to end, how much of it is handled by automated systems? Only 25%, 75% handled by the human. So Daniel, some of those examples you gave earlier are really either the other way around, 75% automated, and in some instances, 100% automated. Do you think Australia is kind of lagging a little? Is it the US that's really adopting this first?
Yeah, I think so. And I think with volume hiring, that kind of scale factor is really important. When you start to have to hire at that scale, it becomes really important to get this balance exactly right. I think we are seeing some momentum. Every week I'm hearing about AI teams being set up inside huge organizations, and sometimes they even have a direct link into HR and TA. So I think with the way things are progressing, we'll start to see this really shift. So recruiters can focus on that key human touch throughout the process.
Let's look at this slide. So this is really interesting. This is, if we go back to that FedEx example of earlier about, hey, the freight handlers, they're revenue positive and productive for us within 2 hours. So why would we have a lot of expensive, time-consuming human interaction? We will fully automate. But then that changes depending on the role category. Do you want to talk about how people are selecting different levels of automation per job category?
Yeah, I mean, the ideal split that we just saw on the previous slide can really vary company to company. But if you start to follow the general principle around automation handling those repetitive, high-volume tasks that really aren't adding much value from a human perspective, things like screening and scheduling, that then frees up recruiters to focus on the human elements. And what we've seen is across those different organizations, and even within the same organization, you can dial automation up or down depending on the types of roles that you're hiring. Realistically, in a high volume environment, it is good to see when automation covers around 70 to 80% of the workflow. But as you've seen And as I've spoken about with FedEx and a couple of other examples, that can be dialed all the way up to 100%.
Yeah.
Or maybe in more corporate kind of services, professional services environments, that can be dialed down a little bit less and having more of those human touch points throughout.
Yeah. There's a question here, Ivan Scott, which is, are those automated systems that you've got, Daniel, are they actually making the final hiring decision?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and probably the most critical point that we like to talk about. The answer is no. So the idea is that the processes are designed by humans. They're facilitated by automation, but ultimately the decision points are still with humans and in human hands. So that decision point, the time in which that decision point happens throughout the process can vary. There can be multiple human decision points as well, but ultimately the hiring decision does still sit with an individual.
So the system can go as far as it needs, but it goes through what's called the human in the loop, HITL.
Yep.
So this is where the human in the loop comes in, checks the actions that the agent has taken, and then can make a go, no go decision and
right.
check for, lovely. Yep. Wonderful. All right. So I promised we would circle back to that earlier slide. What is stopping you from automating with AI? Our 151 volume hiring teams here in Australia told us, number one, cost of tech investment was the number one barrier. The second was data security, privacy concerns. The three is potential bias. When we ask them, what are your largest costs? Then, we got job ad fees. So it makes sense because earlier on they said really job boards are our kind of number one avenue across all of them. Our internal recruiter costs, so obviously salary is always going to be a key expense. Technology came in third. So I think, the cost of investment in TA, I feel like that is assumed by a lot of talent leaders. They automatically go, I feel like that would be expensive. I feel, and they don't kind of fully investigate and raise the business case. But I think when you realize the ROI and how much money you can save, your organization is going to very quickly get on board with spending a little bit of money to save millions and millions of dollars. And there's a lot of technology out there now. There's so many stats you'll find. I'm sure they're all over the Paradox website as well. But, the technology generally pays for itself in less than a year. So I think, I have seen many, and personally as well in my internal roles, I think any of the times that I have come in and made transformation and implemented tech, it's always after a leader who has done nothing for a very long time. They have failed to implement tech. There's poor results. It's struggling. And then they realize the situation that they're in. And then they bring in a transformative leader who says, okay, here's what you need. Here's how I'm going to get you out of this hole. And here's what we can do. I think people are trying to save pennies, but they're missing the pounds. So Dan, do you want to talk us through Nestle and General Motors? I mean, $2 million and $4 million feels like pretty big kudos coming to a talent leader.
Even just to follow up on your point, I think we do hear a fair bit around cost as being a barrier to implementing, but really the question is, what's the cost of not implementing? What are you missing out on by standing still?
Yeah.
So these are yet another couple of examples of clients that Paradox has worked with to achieve some really good outcomes. What I love about both of these is they're really, again, showing that large scale and flexibility of how automation can be built in really to fit into your process. So with Nestle, we helped launch Paradox, as you can see there, 47 countries, 17 languages. It resulted in $4 million saved, but maybe more importantly, it was about 8,000 recruiter hours every month given back to the team. So again, they could focus on being true talent partners and advisors. They can talk strategy with hiring managers instead of having to do that type of interview chasing and playing phone tag, as we mentioned before. And then they had 90% of their candidates moving through from apply to interview in 3 days, which was awesome. Then if you look at General Motors, GM, their story is also very powerful. With their assistant, they could reach their candidates instantly, again, in a way that suits them best. And then in less than a year, they saved over $2 million in costs, scheduled 90,000 interviews automatically, which is incredible. And then they reduced their time to schedule, which was 5 days. They reduced that down to just 27 minutes. So again, meeting candidates where they are, giving them the ability to log into an interview at the press of a button or sending a message. It just you see some really awesome results. Yeah,
amazing. Well, to recap here, and this is our final couple of slides here. This is a great kind of slide that everybody can sort of, sit down with your team and think about, how do we benchmark, against these kind of averages? What does this look like for us? I think there's a lot of really great discussion points that have come out today that people are going to be able to take back and dig through with their teams. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jo.
Thanks.
Jo. Thanks, everyone.